Hi, everyone. It's just about noon, so I thought I would start because the first things first, I want to make sure you guys can hear me. So if you would type in the chat box whether or not my mic is working, because it doesn't let me broadcast to listen to myself. And I can see you guys chat, and I'm going to try to keep up with you guys, though sometimes these things fly really, really fast. So this is definitely an experiment. I've been wanting to try this for a while. Yay, you can hear me. Yay. Hi. Woo. So yeah, I'll try to keep up with the chat and answer questions, but I also have a bunch of topics prepared that I just wanted to talk about. And basically, it didn't seem worth filming a bunch of standalone videos on these topics. I thought I would just talk about them here and try this really cool new thing. Oh, the video's lagging? Is the video lagging for anyone else? I'm using a webcam and then a separate mic because the mic in my webcam isn't the best. So hopefully it works. Okay. So while we wait for people to show up, see, question about NaNoWriMo. I was going to jump right into NaNoWriMo because I just decided to do it like 2 days ago, which is not the most last minute that I've decided to do NaNoWriMo. Video's lagging. Lagging a little, but not bad. Okay, that could just be a Google Hangouts thing. It catches up. That's good to know. For Brightly Burning, I wrote that in 2015 as a nano novel. So I already had about 3,000 words of it. And then I was like, I'm going to do nano for this. And I decided on the 3rd of November to do NaNoWriMo for Brightly Burning. So this time, at least I have like 10 days of prep. But yeah, so I'm doing Preptober, I guess, because I'm trying to get my ducks in a row of what I'm working on. Because I think NaNoWriMo is a pantser. Well, I think it benefits pantsers, but it's also really interesting because I know a lot of you guys, you outliners, you like just intricately plan before you do nano. I'm definitely not doing that. I am, okay, so what am I doing for nano? It's a book I started over 2 years ago. I think I came up with the idea probably in 2015. It's all kind of fuzzy, but I started writing it in 2016 for Nano 2016. It was kind of my book I was writing while I was on submission. Yes, memories. Well, I was on submission with Brightly Burning because they always tell you, and this is good advice, it's true. When you're querying a book or you're on submission with a book, you should write a new book, an unrelated book, because it keeps you distracted and it keeps you kind of forward focused. So if the other book doesn't sell, it's disappointing, but you have something else to move on to. So it's very good advice. And so I started this book in 2016. It is completely different from Brightly Burning and my next book that's coming out, The Stars We Steal, because both of those are based in space. This new book is a fantasy. It's a YA fantasy. And I mean, it's I don't want to say too much because publishing is really weird, but I'm hoping, like, this is the book that I'm going to present to my publisher for my option. And I can explain more about kind of what an option is. I kind of promised to do that at the end of my revision vlog, and we might as well talk about it because I haven't filmed that video yet. We can also talk about my line edits because I did a vlog for my line edits, but it hasn't gone up yet. It's probably going up next week. So I can tell you how that went. But yes, it's so funny. My first book was YA science fiction, but it was very light science fiction. It was contemporary with a sci-fi twist. It was time travel. Then my second book was urban fantasy, though now we would call it contemporary fantasy because of the market. And then I wrote this space book. So, like, to me, writing space books is almost an anomaly, and I'm going back to fantasy because I love fantasy. I love writing kind of, the second one had superpowers in it. This one has magic. And I kind of like adding those extraordinary things to a story. And I can't tell you, on The Stars We Steal, I put every possible fantasy trope into this sci-fi novel, and I had to stop myself from like putting magic in because that would have taken it a little bit too far. The benefits of nano, that's a really good question. And then I'll talk a bit more about this project and like where I am with it. For me, the benefits of Nano, especially when I did it in 2015 for Brightly Burning, is that I couldn't second guess myself and doubt myself, because at the time I was between agents. I was feeling really down in the industry, and I just knew I needed to write something new as fast as possible. And I'd never been a fast writer, and I haven't been a fast writer since, but I had a fire kind of lit under my butt that I needed to get a new agent, and it wasn't going to happen on my second book. So NaNoWriMo enabled me to throw all of my self-doubt out the window alongside thousands of other people doing it at the same time. The community spirit really helped me get out of my own head and just get words on the page. That's why Nano is really good for me, because one of the reasons I'm a slower writer is I do second guess myself a lot. So that's really helped me. So reading your comments. Yes, so Ink Not Blood, you have 38,000 words of a book, so you're going to do Nano. That's kind of where I am. I have about 22,000 words of this YA fantasy, because I basically half nanoed in 2016. I wrote 22,000 words of this book. And now I want to get another huge, massive chunk of it done, just to kind of get ahead of myself. I don't need to present anything to my publisher for a while. And also, because I'm a pantser, I still don't quite know what the book is. So I don't want to share anything with my publisher until the book is a book, if that makes sense. And it's not a book yet at 22,000 words for me. I think I need to hit probably the 50 to 60K mark before I really know what the book is. And that said, I'm not going to hold myself too firmly to 50,000 words in the month of November. Oh, my cat decided to join us. Hi. You always see their tails, and I'm on a different surface so that we can get their face in the stream. That's PETA, this one. Ooh, suggestions for health during Nano. It's hard. Well, and I guess my suggestion is do your best. Don't hold yourself religiously to the word counts necessarily, because I will say, when I did Nano successfully for Brightly Burning, and I wish I tracked my word count at the time, I didn't, but so I'm trying to remember. I didn't hit the word count every day. I definitely had days where I made up for the word count. So if there was a day when it was really, really hard, I still wrote something, but I didn't write 1,667 words. But the next day I might write 2,000. That's one way to kind of give yourself a break. And honestly, if you get far enough into the month and it's just not working for health reasons, mental health reasons, life reasons, because they chose November, which for Americans really sucks because of Thanksgiving. It's always hard. I'm always at my friend's house for Thanksgiving. We've eaten turkey. They're watching football, and I'm furiously typing. It's always really funny. I have to be really antisocial on Thanksgiving, but luckily I don't like football, so it all tends to work out for me. But if it's just not gelling, it's totally fine. I hesitate to say give up, because I don't see it as giving up, but you go easy on yourself, because honestly, any words accomplished in the month are good words. And that's how I'm approaching NaNoWriMo this year. I just want to get stuff on the page and I want to make progress. Have I ever done Camp NaNoWriMo? Yes, I started the Stars We Steal during Camp NaNoWriMo 2017. So July 2017. And I didn't get that far. I wrote not even 10,000 words of the book. Yeah, that book didn't really start actually getting written until I had a real deadline for my publisher, which I got in January of 2018. And then I furiously wrote 50,000 words in 2.5 months. So that's kind of how that one worked out. Prep for this month. So yeah, prep for me. So since I already have 22,000 words, I know who my characters are. I know what my world is. I already have an inciting incident complete. If I were doing Nano, so Preptober on an idea from scratch, I always need to know the characters, the world, the inciting incident, and usually, but not always, the midpoint turn. When I did Brightly Burning for Nano, I had no idea what the midpoint turn was, kind of. I mean, it was a retelling, so I kind of did. But it ended up being something different, because as I pantsed the novel, I came up with new twists and turns. But sorry, reading your comments. And what is the Stars We Steal about? Okay, so it is my second book. It is set in space. It's set in the same universe as Brightly Burning, but it is set 40 years ahead of Brightly Burning. And that enabled me to have more fun with kind of luxury stuff. Because in Brightly Burning, everything's really falling apart. And I was like, ooh, if I do it earlier, I can have more parties because things aren't as dire yet, which is nice. It is technically a retelling of Persuasion, Jane Austen's Persuasion, which is my favorite Jane Austen novel. Technically, it is a retelling of Persuasion. And that's how it started. As I wrote The Stars We Steal, as I was working on it, pantsing it, I discovered that Persuasion doesn't really have a plot. And I love Persuasion. But when you actually think about it, the plot of Persuasion is it's a series of dinner parties, walks, and feelings. It's just scenes where characters have feelings. Really, Anne has feelings. And that is hard to translate into a very active YA novel. One of the conventions of YA is that they're pretty fast-paced and stuff has to happen. Plus, doing it as sci-fi, stuff has to happen in a sci-fi. There has to be high stakes in a sci-fi usually. And I had done that with Brightly Burning. So I had the challenge of taking, essentially, I took the emotional arc of Persuasion, the romantic arc of Persuasion, and I had to invent a plot around it. And in doing that, The Stars We Steal became Jane Austen meets The Bachelor in space, which is the neat pitch, but really, it's more like The Selection in space. But my publisher and I are using The Bachelor pitch because it's more universal. So just in case people haven't read The Selection, but it's the actual thing is more like The Selection. I added a debutante season to my space book, and it's still like very Jane Austen feelings. So yeah, and so for those of you who don't know what Persuasion is, I realize I have to actually tell you. It is about a girl. Her family used to be rich. Like in my world, they have royal titles, so they're royalty. And on the ships that they're on, royalty actually matters. And her childhood sweetheart, my main character's childhood sweetheart, is poor, very poor. I made it so he works for their family. But they fall in love and he proposes marriage, and her family persuades her to turn him down because he's poor. And he leaves and he goes off, and 3 years later, he returns and he's fabulously wealthy. And basically my main character has to watch him flirt and court all of her friends and family. And it's very strained and awkward because it's kind of two characters who refuse to talk about their feelings or be honest with each other. And so it's about 400 pages of emotional torture, basically. That's the plot. All right. Oh, we have a really good comment here. Tip from another veteran: drink lots of water, get up and walk every 2 hours, get enough sleep, plan things like meals and stuff and chores before Nano so you can plan your writing time. That's very good advice. I fit my Nano time kind of around my full-time job. So to me, it honestly just feels like any other writing session. But that's incredibly good advice, especially if you are writing every day for large chunks of time. Yeah, Persuasion's definitely one of Austen's more underrated novels. And I think it's because I considered her mature novel. Like, it was the last one she wrote, and she was older. And also, like I said, it doesn't have as much of an active plot. It's definitely not as funny as the other books. I mean, Pride and Prejudice is still, it's the master class from Austen, but Persuasion is just my personal favorite because I really connect to the feelings. But yeah, how does one write a romantic scene without the character sounding too creepy? Well, in general, I think that it can come across as creepy if you're writing melodrama. So watch for melodrama, like really look at what you have your character saying and doing and think about whether they would actually do that in real life. And kind of examine like how much you're pushing the drama dial. That can definitely help. How do you pitch books with multiple POVs? So the rule of thumb with queries for multi-POV books, especially if it's more than two, is you pick the dominant POV, like the dominant POV that you want to pull the agent in with, and you do the query with just the one POV, but you close it by saying XYZ is a multi-POV novel or a novel told from the perspectives of 5 characters, but you leave the query with the main one. But when you have a dual POV, so 2 characters, you can usually get away with the query highlighting both of them. But even if that's too much, you go with the main character. There's always kind of a main character in a multi-POV novel, usually. So that's the kind of the rule of thumb on that. How do I come up with titles for my books? That's a really good question. Well, so for Brightly Burning and The Stars We Steal, I actually did the same thing. I did a massive brainstorm list. With Brightly Burning, I had to change my title when I sold it. And with The Stars We Steal, I knew from Brightly Burning how my publisher liked to work on titles. So I just kind of did it organically. The book didn't have a title until, I was done, basically, which is very weird for me. I usually like to have a title when I start, but I discovered with Brightly Burning that they don't stay that way. So I try not to get too attached now. Basically, I brainstorm a list of words that are kind of tangentially related to the novel. If I have any specific terms in the book that are kind of organic or unique to the world, I include those on the list. And then I just try different constructions. Like we all know from reading books, in our genre, I do pay attention to genre trends. So a couple years ago, the one word YA book title trend was a thing. And so at that time, I would have brainstormed single words. But now 2-word constructions and like kind of those flowery constructions with verbs like Bright We Burn, Kirsten White's book, are very in vogue. So you kind of go with what's in style, and I just smoosh a bunch of words together until I see some that I think sound good, and I try to picture them on the cover. And then I submit my 5 favorites to my publisher, and then they pick, usually. Yeah, that's kind of how I do it. What is my full-time job? I do television marketing. I work in international television marketing. So my company takes channels from other countries. They're almost all in language, and we distribute them in the United States as premium networks. So if any of you have parents who subscribe to cable still, who watch television in another language, the odds are pretty high that I work with that channel. So that's my business. That's the thing that I do. It's creative, just creative enough to keep me engaged. Work's always a little bit different every day, but it's not such an intense marketing job, or doesn't require so much creativity that I can't kind of turn off work and then come home and work on my own stuff, which is really important to me. You're getting stuck with plotting and you're a pantser. I mean, my only advice is just to do it. I know that sounds crazy. But what I like about pantsing and about Nano especially is that it forces you to come up with solutions on the fly. And very often those solutions are pretty cool. So like with The Stars We Steal, the whole reason there's a debutante season, the whole reason that's got the selection thing going on is I got to the break into 3, which is where Act 2 goes into the 3rd act, the thing that happens to propel you into the 3rd act. And I realized I needed a thing that everything was actually leading up toward. And I went, okay, so what's a fun 3rd act thing that could happen that this book could lead up to? And I was like, well, a ball. Why would they be having a ball? And it all kind of snowballed from there. So, and that was an in the moment pantsing problem solving thing. So I know it's kind of not the most helpful, but my advice is just to do it, and to not be afraid to do something that seems bonkers, something that would mean a lot of revision. I mean, I basically got to the 60K mark of my book and realized I had to revise the first 2/3, and I did, and it's a better book. So it all worked out for me. Yes, my original title was Solitary Star. I still really like that title, by the way, but my publisher felt it was too quiet, which I also agree with. So that's the other thing when you're brainstorming titles, you do have to think about what kind of book you have. Brightly Burning is not a literary novel, it's a commercial novel. And so Solitary Star sounded more like a literary novel, and they wanted something more commercial. And I bore that in mind with The Stars We Steal. I was like, okay, they want something really strong and active and commercial and a little bit sexy. And that's kind of how I arrived at the title, and I really like it. I like The Stars We Steal more than Brightly Burning, mostly just because I really wanted stars in the title of one of my space books. And there are so many books in YA that have stars in the title, and none of them are set in space. So I was like, I'm getting stars in my title. Darn it. All right. Do I work with German stations? I do, though none of the ones that you would think of. So fun fact, I lived in Germany in high school. I was Austauschschülerin, an exchange student. And none of the channels I like to watch in Germany distribute internationally. I work with Deutsche Welle, which is not a channel in Germany. But they basically compile things from ARD and ZDF and original productions, and it's an international German channel. It's very strange. Let's see. I'm actually going to a German film festival tonight in Los Angeles, so it's a German weekend. And my main character of The Stars We Steal, I made her German. So that was fun. I mean, I made her German because it was easier, but I was trying to do a riff on the Austrian royal family, like Sissi and Leopold, but that's a little too meta. It didn't really make it into the book. What are your thoughts on editing and getting into the industry, the editing industry? So if you mean working at a traditional publisher, it's hard. It's honestly just hard. You don't need a specific kind of college degree to do it. Get any college degree and just pound the pavement trying to get in at a publisher in New York. The other kind of ways in would be you can get specific editing certificates. There are certificate programs that exist, and you can kind of do one of those programs and then get copy editing jobs potentially at publishers. I'm not an expert on getting into editing, but I know one way to do it is to do, unfortunately, the slog in New York of low-paid internships, and hopefully they're paid, and kind of trying to work your way up. How long does it take to get from an idea to a whole plot or draft? I mean, for me, Stars We Steal took 9 months to write. Brightly Burning took 3. So it really varies. I don't usually figure out my book until I get through the second act. And so it depends how long it takes me to write the first 2 acts of the book. With The Stars We Steal, I started in July and I figured out my twist in February. And for Brightly Burning, I figured out my twist right at the end of Nano, because I wrote that book so fast. So it's always like 60K for me, and my books are like 90,000 words. So do I think Wattpad is a good platform for new writers? Yes, though that comes with caveats. And actually, I'm glad you brought up Wattpad. I've been thinking of putting some stuff up on Wattpad. Fun fact, I might do that. But I've seen a lot of people, especially on Reddit, getting really disappointed about things with Wattpad, meaning they put up stuff on Wattpad, they get a decent number of reads, and then they try to query that Wattpad novel. And the thing is, unless you get millions and millions of views on Wattpad and Wattpad itself takes interest in you, you're probably not going to get a publishing deal on that specific work on Wattpad. But I do think it is valuable to publish a work on Wattpad, kind of build up a bit of a profile, and then query a new book, a new work. I think that can definitely get agents interested if your Wattpad platform is big enough. But if you're querying a book that already has XYZ views on Wattpad, that's usually not going to work out. So meaning if you're going the Wattpad route, don't think of it as a shortcut to traditional publication, because it so rarely happens. And it's the same rule of thumb with self-publishing. So rarely does someone do so well in self-publishing that traditional publishing comes knocking. So that's my caveat there. But otherwise, yes, I think it's a very good platform. I think it's got an amazing community. And I think it offers a lot of opportunities. Oh no, don't ask me about plotting structures. I'm the worst. I don't plot. Though I am putting together a video on plotting structures because I know that I should, which I guess brings us to the topic of when you offer advice that you don't follow. But go to Catty-tastic's channel. Sorry, my cat is nudging the computer screen, which means the camera's moving. I would go to Catty-tastic's channel because she has a lot of really good plot outlining and structural videos, and I don't follow any of that stuff. So, whoops. Where in Germany did I study? I lived in Mulhausen, Thüringen, in the middle of nowhere. It was a federal exchange program between the U.S. Congress and the German Bundestag. And so I lived in the former East. It was 2000, 2001, so 10 years after the wall came down. It was really interesting. The one good thing is no one really spoke English, so I had to speak German. I don't really remember any of it. I mean, I can't really speak German anymore, but I can understand it. That's good. Will I be vlogging for NaNoWriMo? I'm going to try. Yeah. I'm still learning how to vlog, though, so we're going to see how that goes. Like, through my revision vlogs and my line edit vlogs, I kept forgetting to vlog. I do that a lot. So we'll see. All right. Thinking of using Wattpad to share a companion book. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So that's exactly, I'm thinking if I put stuff up on Wattpad, it's not going to be stuff that I plan on traditionally publishing. It's going to be bonus work. Hi, Kat. Yeah, give them your links, please, Team Plotter, because it's not me. Yeah, I think it can be good for bonus content and kind of giving extras to your readers. Yeah, in the middle of nowhere, Germany. And in fairness, the middle of nowhere in Germany is quite nice. And also, in fairness, I was a snobby big city kid who thought a population of 40,000 was really small. Whoops. But that was so small to me. But we had a movie theater and a McDonald's, so you know it wasn't that small. But whatever. It was really weird for me, though. I was like, this town is so small. There were only 2 high schools in the entire town, and everyone knew each other. It was strange. Okay, would I ever consider self-publishing, or did I ever consider self-publishing? That's a very good question. I actually have a video that's going to go up in the next couple weeks. So I pre-filmed a ton of stuff after I hit my book deadlines. I filmed a ton of videos because I had no backlog, and I was like, I haven't been posting enough. Oh, yay, CBYX. Yeah, that was my program. Woohoo. Ooh, California, nice. So you went to one of the nice states. Also, fun fact, my first job out of college was finding homes for exchange students in the United States. So I worked for EF Foundation for Foreign Study. I really enjoyed that job, but the hours were bonkers, and I couldn't write because I was working 80 hours a week in the summer, 7 days a week, and I had no emotional reserves left for writing. And then I got this new job. I was talking about, self-publishing. So I'm going to have a video go up because I realized I've never actually I did a video about why I decided to traditionally publish. And I thought about self-publishing in the sense that I compared and contrasted, and I made the best decision for what I was writing and my long-term career, like what I wanted. But I have had in my mind a long game plan to be a hybrid author. I've had it in mind for 2 to 3 years. So before I got my book deal, because I really admire what Beth Revis did. So Beth, traditionally published her first series Across the Universe with Penguin Random House, and then she ended up self-publishing a prequel to that series, The Body Electric, and she's also self-published some really great writing advice books that I also recommend called Paper Hearts. Congresswoman Stog, that was me. I just really admire what she did. I thought it was really smart. The traditional publishing industry wasn't going to publish her prequel, her standalone prequel novel, a companion novel. And she knew she had fans who wanted to read it. And I watched her go through the process, and I really admired what she did. I also know several YA authors, or I know of them. I actually don't know them personally, who 100% have secret pen names for adult romance, and they either do it with small presses or they self-publish. And that is something that really appeals to me. I've always had it in the back of my mind that romance is a category that does exceedingly well in self-publishing. It does so well in ebooks. And I love romance. I write YA romance, of course. So I would totally self-publish adult romance. It's a long game plan, though. I don't currently have the bandwidth. Because if you watch my why I didn't self-publish video, one of the things, because you have to do your research, and one of the things that I knew made it wrong for me is I'm so slow. I am a slow writer. I don't have the time or the ability to do prolific output, which is what really enables you to build a following in self-publishing. Self-publishing is an arena that rewards volume. Meaning your readers, because they like you, they want more and they want it soon, especially if you're writing a series. So I know I'm not there yet, not with my full-time job. If I didn't have my full-time job, I could probably write more and write faster, but I'm not there yet. So self-publishing for me is a long game plan, and I wouldn't self-publish a YA novel unless it was really right for the specific market of YA on Amazon. So I've thought about it, but that's kind of where I stand. Scanning your comments. Oh, absolutely. A blind writer 100% has a chance in the traditional publishing industry. Cody Keplinger is blind, and she's published, I think she's up to 6 or 7 books. The industry has no problem working around, typos and whatnot. Honestly, it's completely fine. She writes great books. And, you just want to get like a really good agent advocate for you, and they'll stand up for you, and it's fine. And same thing, honestly, for any disabilities. You get a really good agent who's your advocate. You tell your agent whatever the thing is. You don't even honestly necessarily have to tell a publisher if you don't want to, whatever your thing is. So like I know people who have like severe PTSD, and it's not something that they shared up front with their publishers when they were selling their book. Like their agent knew. And then, they sell the book, and then they just kind of manage things on a case-by-case basis. You don't have to tell anyone anything about you. Just write great books. Yeah. Would I ever write a series? Yes. It's so funny. My first 2 books were both supposed to be series, and they went nowhere. And then I started writing standalones, and I love the freedom of that. So I currently don't have a series planned, but I would like to, because I'm very attracted to building worlds and building characters and kind of having an arc that goes over multiple books. I just haven't done it. If you leave your publisher, they don't pick up your next book. Do you keep your rights if your publisher drops you? This depends on your contract, and this is why you need a very good literary agent. This is also why it's very, very, very dangerous to direct sub to publishers without an agent, small publishers, because some of them have extremely predatory contracts in terms of right grabs. A good literary agent with a good publisher will negotiate all sorts of clauses into your contract that protect you. Mine definitely did that for me. There are clauses that have to do with things being out of print, and there are expiration periods for like rights to characters and series. So that is very much a contract by contract, situation by situation question, but it is why I advocate so hard if you're doing any form of traditional publishing to get the best possible agent. And here's the thing. It's not just the agent who's like shiny on Twitter. You need an agent who has very good experience with contracts and negotiating and is good at negotiating contracts, because contracts are way more important than you think they are. And it can be the littlest things that can trip you up in a contract. So for example, let's talk about option clauses. So the option clause is the first right of refusal. Your publisher has you have to show them your next work in XYZ category, and they have the right to offer to publish it or not to publish it. And if they offer to publish it, you don't have to say yes, by the way. You're not locked into a contract with them. They just get to see it first. And the thing is, it should be specific. A bad agent lets that clause say any work of fiction. That's bad. What you want that clause to say is, if you're a YA writer, next work of YA fiction, or even more specific, this is what my contract says. It says YA science fiction. Now, I'm probably going to be pitching a fantasy for my option, but I don't have to. I could take my fantasy elsewhere and it wouldn't violate my contract. Incidentally, I love my publisher and I'm very happy with them. So I'm going to share my fantasy with them. But you need a good agent. It's very important. Agents are very important. They earn their 15%, or they should. So do I have any input on my covers? Did I have any input on my covers? No, not really. So when I have a video on this, by the way, a general one about how it works. And I didn't go into too many details about me, but your publisher is usually going to ask you for like a mood board. So if you have a Pinterest board for your book, that really helps. And they're going to ask you for examples of covers that you like. And they're going to ask you these things, but it doesn't mean anything. And I know that scares people. Hi, I'm going to scare you. Both times they asked me what I had in mind, what I wanted. And I'd say both times they followed on a more esoteric level what I asked for. I said, I want romantic, kind of swoony covers, and I got that in both cases. Because yes, I've seen my book 2 cover and I adore it. It's so good, but it's not at all what I had in mind. And like what I told them, it's not that. But I'm so glad they did their own thing, because they came up with never thought of. So then with Brightly Burning, they sent me a draft. So my book was crashed, my first book, which means I was on an accelerated publishing schedule. So I think this is really the reason I didn't have input on that cover, to be honest, because we ran out of time. because the ARCs had to come out by a conference in November. So, and it took them a couple tries to get the cover they wanted. So I was sent the cover, and they were basically like, we have to go to print with this in 3 days. The good thing is there was enough time. We changed the colors. I requested purple. That was me. Yay. And I got what I wanted. And I requested a new font, and they changed the font, and I'm really happy with it. But other than that, what they sent me is basically the cover. There wasn't time. And then on the new one, we have tons of time, but what they sent me was more or less perfect. To be honest, it didn't really need changes. So I'm hoping there's going to be a cover reveal really soon. I really like it. Like I said, I would have never asked for this cover because it would have never occurred to me. And that's why cover designers are professionals, because they came up with something really cool. It's definitely romantic, and it's unexpected. And I think it's going to look so, so cool. And I'm really excited. So how many words is Brightly Burning and the Stars We Steal? Brightly Burning was 94,500 words. And currently the Stars We Steal is 92,300 words. I just sent it in. I did line edits, so we'll see if it stays there with copy edits. How many drafts did it take to get the final of Brightly Burning? That's a really good question. All right, if we count my first revision, which we should, which I did very fast after I had pantsed the draft. So I finished Nano, and then it took another 2 months to finish the book. The first draft of Brightly Burning was 104,000 words. I got it down to 99,800 words to query it, because you want to get under 100K if you can. It's a little trick. And then, so that was one revision. I revised it with my agent after I signed. We went on submission. Then I revised it between submission rounds, and then I did one more small developmental edit with my editor. So 4 rounds of content editing, and then line edits, copy edits, and past pages. So really four versions. And 2 of those revisions, I'd say, were pretty major. The one I did with my agent, I was restructuring a mystery, and I changed. I basically changed a bad guy kind of in that revision. And then the one I did between submission rounds to sell my book was pretty major. I cut 6,000 words from the first 18,000. That was a pacing edit. And I added a lot to the romance, and I completely changed the ending. So that was pretty major too. Do your book covers look like they somewhat go together? No, they don't at all. They don't. They look completely different, because essentially this new one, the second one, is a standalone. So they're treating it that way, like a fresh start. But we like the cover so much, they're going to redo my cover for paperback so that the paperback and the hardcover of the second book match, which I think is going to be pretty cool. I can't wait to see what they do for the paperback, because I like the new one so much. If you have a book cover sketch, yeah, you can totally show them. They just might disregard it. I mean, I'll say it's so funny, because I guess now we could talk a bit more about traditional publishing versus self-publishing. Covers are probably the biggest thing that I encounter when I'm talking to people. It's a real decision factor for a lot of people, not having control over their cover, which I completely understand, but it just doesn't matter enough to me, I guess, because I would rather take the gamble and trust that my publisher knows what they're doing. And that's the thing. On Brightly Burning, my publisher knew what they were doing. Our bookstore orders were really, really good. People have really responded to it. Instagram really likes the cover, so it doesn't really matter what I think. And I really like the cover, but like the new one, the second one, I adore the cover. That's kind of the difference for you. Let's see. Lack of creative power. Yeah, I get it. I really do get it. I get the feeling and I get the fear, and it is a gamble. I'd say probably with traditional publishing, you have like a 20% shot of getting the most amazing cover ever that you could have never done yourself, and it's worth it. And then I'd say probably 50%, 60%, 60 to 70% of other books have just good covers. They're not terrible. And then like maybe 10 to 20% get really awful covers, but it's you rarely get a really awful cover. So to me, it's worth it because of the distribution. And that's the other thing. Like, they know what they're doing with covers because they know what a bookstore is willing to buy. Fun fact, if Barnes & Noble doesn't like your cover, they have to change it. Barnes & Noble has a lot of power when it comes to covers. because they know what they want on their shelves, and getting into Barnes and Noble can be a deal breaker for your book. It can be huge for sales, so you want to get into Barnes and Noble. So let's see. Would I recommend querying series of books, i.e. a trilogy, especially when only the first book is completely written? Well, don't write the other books. You query it as a standalone with series potential. Make sure it actually stands alone, by the way. Don't write the other books unless you know it's going to go somewhere, or unless you know that you are fully comfortable doing self-publishing as your backup, because otherwise you're just wasting time. Like, I'm so glad I didn't write the second books of my first book, which was supposed to be a trilogy, and my second book, which was supposed to be a trilogy, neither of which went anywhere. The first one didn't sell, and the second one, my agent didn't know how to pitch it. She didn't, and then I fell flat on my face in querying that book. So I'm so glad I didn't spend that time. And now I write standalones. It's weird. Non-native speakers writing in English. You can definitely publish in the United States. There are a couple of ways to do it. If you just write like a hit it out of the park amazing book, you can just get US or UK agent representation and sell your book like anyone else. Another way to do it is to sell in your native language, in your native country first, and then if you become a bestseller, they'll do translated editions. That's a bit more rare, but I've definitely seen that happen for the German market. Just write the best story you can and query agents. It doesn't technically matter where you live. It does get complicated for taxes, and it does also get complicated. Some publishers do look at your location because it can make it hard to market your book if you are physically not close. It's not always a deal breaker, but it can factor in. So like, that's just kind of my warning there. You guys have such good questions. I actually had like a whole list of topics prepared so I wouldn't run out of things to talk about, but you guys ask good questions. All right. Favorite color, favorite food. My favorite color is purple, so my cover was great. My favorite food. Oh, that one's hard. It used to be mashed potatoes, but it's not anymore. I like Thai food a lot. Maybe Thai curry. What do I think will be the next YA trend? That's a really good question. I think contemporary fantasy is coming back, i.e. urban fantasy with a different name, and I'm very excited. I think we're going to see more witches. I think vampires are coming back. But I think that what we're going to see of contemporary fantasy coming back as a trend, it's going to be completely different from what it used to be, what urban fantasy used to be, what paranormal used to be. You can't write books, like a book that was published in 2007 would not get published now. The kind of the tropes and the writing style. So I think I think that's the trend. I think we're going to see things come back, but fresh. And honestly, I think dystopian's coming back or will come back, but I don't think we're going to call it dystopian. I think it's going to be, people are going to find fresh new ways to write it, and it'll probably be called sci-fi more often, or even people will mesh dystopian with contemporary fantasy and fantasy. So I think we're going to see a lot of that. Fantasy is never going to go away, but fantasy is very saturated right now in YA, so it's harder to sell. But if you have either a unique spin on fantasy or you're doing something in fantasy that hasn't been done in a while, you can sell fantasy. So yeah, fantasy never dies. I like plain coffee. I actually hate flavored coffee. If I smell vanilla coffee, I get like a little nauseous, which is funny because I used to drink it and now I just can't stand it. I think it's gross. YA or adult, how to choose. They're very different. The markets are different. The rules of the markets are different. The publishing potential for traditional versus self-publishing is different. Depends on your book. It depends on what you want to do. And honestly, I get this question a lot with author mentor match. And if anyone here has author mentor match questions, let me know. One of the big ones is, why are you only for Kidlit? And we're only for Kidlit because I only know about the market for Kidlit. And the whole idea of author mentor match is I personally vet all the mentors. Either I know them personally, they are referred to me by people I trust, or I review their application carefully. And I determine that I think that they know what they're talking about. And I know nothing about adult publishing. And honestly, adult encompasses everything that isn't Kidlit. Think about that. That's so broad. And I don't think I could, at this juncture, in terms of bandwidth, provide the quality I would want to in mentoring, opening it up to mentoring adult. So that's why I don't do adult in author mentor match, because I do AMM in my spare time on top of all my publishing deadlines. And honestly, I wouldn't even be able to get it done if it weren't for my co-mods who help me. You don't see them all the time, but they are the only reason we've done the last 2 rounds of AMM. Like Liz Parker and Kevin Van Way and Emily Duncan and Rosie Thor. I'm probably forgetting some people, but they have been like, they are the reason I've been able to do author mentor match, because my deadlines have been bonkers. What genre tropes do I think are most sought out and why currently? Well, like I said, fantasy is evergreen, so is contemporary, honestly. The key is to not retread what has already been done and to find fresh new spins on familiar things. People like familiarity. They like tropes for a reason, but they like to see something new that they haven't seen before, or taking something old and making it fresh, like Renee Audier's new vampire book is a fresh take on vampires, and honestly, I can't wait to see what else people do with vampires to bring them back. I'm ready for something new. Do I have any plans to write a novel or novella of Jessa from Brightly Burning? I don't, but I've thought about doing a novella from Hugo's point of view, like a prequel. I've thought about that. If I did that, I'd probably self-publish it or put it on Wattpad. But I can think about it. She'd have to be a bit older, and it would have, I don't want to spoil the book. It would have to be set somewhere that I don't really want to write. Terrible. Let's see. I covered the multiple POV characters in the query letter question a little earlier, so when this is done, you can replay. I went over that. A dystopian in a fantasy setting. I mean, honestly, I think that's a smart way to do it. That's what Red Queen is. If someone doesn't get chosen for AMM, should they try the same manuscript for next round? It depends on what you have. If you have a completely different manuscript and you like it a lot, submit the new one. But also, every single round, we have someone, more than one person, who's chosen with the same manuscript they submitted before, but this time they submitted to new mentors, because every round there's fresh people reviewing. So it can definitely work out to resubmit. So either way works. It depends on what you have and how you're feeling about them. And here's the thing, even if you submit something new, you can mention your other completed manuscripts in the submission form. The reason we have a detailed submission form is we actually want to know everything you're working on, everything you already have done, things you've already queried, because our mentors usually aren't just picking the book you submit. I mean, they do pick based on the book you submit, but they look at your other work too, like the ideas that you have either that you're working on or you have completed, because they're hoping to help you on more than one book. So you can just talk about both. Let's see. Who in terms of style do I think is similar to me in terms of the writing advice community? Or do you mean the advice community or writing? Actually writing. Advice community, I will always recommend Beth Revis and Susan Dennard. They inspire me. I also really like Cameron Hurley's podcast, Get to Work Hurley. That one, I think that I want to be friends with her. I think we have a similar tone. In terms of actual writing of books, any YA novel written by someone who used to write fan fiction is probably going to be really similar to me. Like Mackenzie Lee. There's a few others. Because I write like someone who used to write fan fiction, and I accept that about myself. I love tropes, like really trashy tropes, and I like a little bit of melodrama. I like kind of over-the-top romantic drama. Is kidlit different from YA? No, YA is part of kidlit. So kidlit's like a short phrase. It just means kidlit is picture books, middle grade, and middle grade includes chapter books, and YA, young adult fiction. Kidlit, it's just kind of like everything for anyone under the age of 18. And there's, of course, picture books are not like middle grade, and upper middle grade is not like chapter books, and YA is not like middle grade or picture books, but they all kind of, very often you'll find literary agents rep all three. They specialize in books for kids. Though, of course, adults read YA. All of us. Oh, yeah, Hugo. I love Hugo. It's really sad. How long is the AMM mentorship period if you get picked? This varies. Okay, so the minimum. We promise a full manuscript critique and to help you query that manuscript. That is the minimum. And then it depends on how long that takes. So it could be 6 months. It could be a year. And then if there's a love match between mentor and mentee and the timing works out, because people do get busy, It can go multiple years. I'm still friends with my mentees that I picked 2 years ago. They're working on new books, they're creating new books, but I basically consider them my friends now. But I'm not the only mentor who like really bonded strongly to someone and who just is doing it more long term. And yeah, then at that point you just become friends. You become peers, especially if you get agented. So I'd say it's 6 months to a year at minimum. Is there a Discord channel? We could make one. I don't really use Discord. Should I use Discord? I use Slack and I use Reddit. Are you for or against book and AuthorTubers getting publishing deals with the only determining factor being audience size? You guys decided to go right for it. And while we're here, I will say something kind of cool. I am launching a community chat program with Cattytastic and Lainey, with Ginger Reads Lainey, on YouTube. We were inspired by Bookmarked, which Haley, Zoe, and Hannah are doing. We thought it was really cool. We were like, we should do this for AuthorTube, but we straddle AuthorTube and BookTube. So we're going to do that. And that's one of our conversation topics, but I'll also talk about it here. We're going to launch that in a few weeks. It's basically a discussion show, a live discussion show we're going to be doing. I don't have a problem with booktubers getting book deals personally. However, I think it's a complicated topic because, all right, so publishing is always chasing a sure thing. That's just publishing. And it's frustrating. It's always going to be frustrating for you because that's essentially what the market is. So that's what trends are. Publishers, they want to take the least amount of risk to get the highest reward. That's why sometimes you'll see books sell and you don't understand. They're like, what? Why? Well, the publisher thinks something is a good bet, a good investment. And the thing about anyone who creates an audience, a platform, they appear to be a lower risk investment. And honestly, they usually are. If you have a platform and a built-in audience, you're going to sell more books. That's just reality. And am I British? Just brief. Ish. So my dad is British, like 100% British citizen, though he's now a dual American citizen. I'm British, Irish, Scottish, and 1/8 Italian, tiny bit Italian. But I'm mostly British and Irish, like majorly British and Irish. George Bernard Shaw is my second cousin. Fun fact. I mean, it doesn't mean anything, but it's cool. So publishing's looking for a sure thing. And the thing about booktubers is they're basically guaranteed sales. I completely understand why publishers are buying up books from booktubers. I personally always assume going in when I see something, when I see a deal or whatnot, I always assume the book is good. I want to believe in my heart that the book is good. And I will actually tell you, publishing's usually not going to buy a book that is a complete flaming pile of garbage. Like there's going to be something redeemable or something that's going to appeal to someone in a book. I mean, that's just books in general, because you're always going to see books that come out and you go, oh, why did they buy that? I don't think that's good. I mean, I feel that way all the time. But I go, well, someone thought it was good. The editor clearly had no problem reading it 8 times because your editor ends up reading your book over and over again. Poor things. My poor editor is like on her 7th read of my book. I want to send her flowers. So I always assume good faith that the book is going to be pretty good. Does that mean that it always is? Meh. But I actually am excited to see more books from booktubers, and I mean AuthorTubers. Although I started my YouTube channel after I had a book deal, so no one's giving me a channel. But my channel, because they're like, oh, cool, you're doing stuff. I'm like, yeah, I enjoy it. I actually am curious to see more because I think there's huge potential. I think someone who loves books that much could probably write a really good story. So I'm going to read Christine's book as soon as I can. And I want to see who the next person is who gets a book deal. And I hope it's one of my friends. So, but I see all the sticky stuff too. Like it's tough. It's tough. Yeah. Publishing's weird. Have I ever stolen anything? No. Hi guys. I'm a very boring Ravenclaw. I am so boring. I always follow the rules. It's really sad. I've never cheated. I've never stolen anything. I've never done drugs. I'm so boring. My fun is writing books, basically. And actually, if you read my books, you know that they drink all the time. I don't even do that. I just make my fictional characters do it. It's great. So I'm very boring. Hi. I mean, I'll start a Discord channel if you want to. I'm perfectly fine with that. Let's see. Could I do a book about my life? My life's not that interesting. I do think that your life inspires your fiction, and I think that can be interesting. I've definitely thought about writing a YA contemporary about being an exchange student. The thing is, I don't read enough YA contemporary because I love genres so much, so that's kind of tabled, but someday I might do that. Let's see. I hope it's Kat. I hope it's Kat too. So I bug her all the time about writing. She's revising right now. I'm like, do more, do it faster. And when the time comes, I'm going to help her with querying. Though Kat's actually really smart about this stuff. She already has like a list and like she knows what she's doing, but I'm going to help her anyway. And I may have helped a few other YouTubers with their stuff. I like to help. That's why AMM exists. So boring Ravenclaws for the win. Yeah, you know what? We're boring, but we're so safe. Like, it's great. Like, no risks. I don't like risk taking. Top 3 books I dislike and why? Oh, that's a T question. It's a good one, though. A Tale of Two Cities. Don't like it. Could not get through it in high school. Kind of hate it. But I love Great Expectations. But I think A Tale of Two Cities is... Don't like it. YA things come to mind, but I really think it's tacky to do that. I'm very careful about the way that I talk about YA books, and actually, we should talk about that. The reason is, and I made a video on it, and I talked about it in a video, but like, really, I have run into, met, shook the hand of, had meals with people whose books I didn't like. So that's why I don't trash talk books. Because like, this industry is way smaller than you think it is. And like, you don't believe me. And then you go to an event and you're like, I'm at a table with a New York Times bestseller. What is my life? And that New York Times bestseller could be someone whose book you don't like. And then you're just really glad you didn't trash it on the internet. So that's why I'm really, really careful about that. I didn't like The Lion Game by Ruth Ware, but it's not like my top disliked book. I'm going to make a video on that, though, because I actually think my problems with that book offer a very good lesson for writers. I do plan on doing that. I have an outline. Haven't filmed it. Each house is awesome in their own way. I agree. I'm actually technically a Slytherclaw, but I don't have any of the, like, more exciting Slytherin tendencies, but I'm ambitious, so I have that part. So I like Slytherclaws because, like, we accomplish things with spreadsheets. It's like a mix. And if I were any other house, like my rank houses, I'm a Ravenclaw, then I'm a Slytherin, then I'm a Hufflepuff, and I am like 0% Gryffindor. So I'm not Gryffindor at all. I'm being facetious when I say that I'm boring. I love that I'm boring, by the way. I don't actually think I'm boring. I mean, I'm not boring if you want to talk about all of the television I marathon and all the books that I read, which I don't think is boring. What are my long-term goals? You guys are so good at questions. I'm not covering like any of the topics for my outline. My long-term goals. I'd love to write books full-time, but here's the problem with that. Some of you might relate to this. So I come from a lower middle class background, and that's not to like draw lines in the sand or anything. And I'm doing fine, but meaning when you come from that background where you're not too, poorly off, but you're not super well off. I get very anxious about safety nets is the best way to put it. And the thing is, I don't know if I can leave my full-time job because the benefits are too good. I love having health insurance and I love my 401k. Saving for retirement is really, really important to me. I'm scared of the idea of ending up with not having enough, not having a safety net. My mom taught me to save and to not take risks. It's that Ravenclaw thing. And so as much as I'd like to write full-time, currently with our healthcare system and everything going on, I'm not attaching myself too strongly to that idea because I like the security that I have in a full-time job. So my long-term goal would be to have a interesting full-time job that brings me fulfillment and excellent benefits, but leaves me plenty of time and brain space to continue to publish books. So we're going to call that my long-term goal. A vid on self-publishing exposing some of the myths. Oh, okay, so that's hard. if I can find a very circumspect and incredibly respectful way to do it, I will. Because I don't like the idea. I don't like the us versus them very much, to be perfectly honest. And I mean, I think I've covered that in multiple videos. Yes, there are things that I think people really, I obviously don't love the way that they necessarily talk about them on certain writing forums and places where I do think they misrepresent a little of some of the reality. But I also, like, it's not hurting me, really. Like, it doesn't change my career or my focus or my path. I'll think about doing something, but I don't. All right, obviously I've done a couple of videos that are discussion-based videos. This actually does bring me to something I did want to discuss. And I really enjoy those kinds of videos. And we can talk about the Slither Claw nature. Of course, one will make a video like that and title it in a certain way because, you know, people are going to click on it. But then my bait and switch is to then just give them a really good and in-depth discussion. But I don't want to just make videos that stir the pot. I always want it to be a thoughtful discussion. Which brings me to positivity in the writing community. I thought it was really interesting. And I don't even think it was about me necessarily. I think it was the coincidence of timing of when my video posted. I filmed it last week. And then for reasons I couldn't post it until Friday. Oh no, you do not need to give me money. Please don't donate money. And I looked to see if I could actually turn that off because I know that's a thing that happens in live chats because I do other people's live chats. I don't need money. Please don't give me money. We should talk about money. I'm so uncomfortable with the idea of asking people for money. But positivity in the writing community. I think it's a very dangerous thing when people start discussions and bring up interesting things that we should maybe talk about. I think it is a dangerous thing to tell everyone that they should be nice and tell everyone that they should be kind and tell everyone that, oh, we should be positive. Of course we should be positive. But what I don't like is the idea that conversation is confrontation because it's not. It's not inherently negative to talk about a community norms, things that you're seeing. And I think that other communities in the writing community, offshoots of the writing community, have gone through these growing pains. And I think we're just now going through those growing pains. If some of you are kind of in the YA world and you were on Twitter a few years ago, you'll remember the Keep YA Kind campaign. And the problem with the Keep YA Kind campaign is it was a real nice way for mostly white men and white women, able-bodied, you know, cis-het people to shut down conversations that, you know, marginalized communities were having about publishing. And so I'm very wary of calls for kindness when it shuts down conversation. Because I think that we can embrace all the good things about our community and still have constructive conversations. So that's something that I wanted to talk about because I'm always very wary of shutting down conversation. And that I'm not a marginalized creator. I don't see myself that way, but meaning I want the door to be open so that other people can have the conversations they need to have. And frankly, we probably should interrogate how white, middle class, cis-het this community is. But I don't want anyone to be shutting down those individuals who are going to have those conversations. So, and I think you can do this in a civil way. Tips if you get stuck when doing nano. I'm going to give you I hope you are of legal age in your country because honestly, drinking helps. I know that's terrible advice. But when I was really stuck, I would have a glass of wine and loosen me up a bit. Do something crazy. That's the other suggestion. Like, even if you have to undo it later, think about the craziest, wackiest thing you could have happen. Do that. And if you make it bonkers enough, it creates conflict and it gives you something to write. So you can always undo it later. Time management, how I divide my time between YouTube writing and having a full-time job. It's really hard. And sometimes I juggle it very poorly and sometimes I juggle it very well. You always have to prioritize certain things over others and your priorities shift. And sometimes you fail. You guys haven't necessarily seen me fail and fall flat on my face because thus far I haven't really failed with YouTube, but I have failed in other avenues of my life, meaning I pick up one ball and I drop another. But generally, I only take on projects that I'm passionate about, that I really want to do. I'm very selective. I try not to say yes to too many things. I owe a few people answers about things. I figure out what kind of the ROI. I look. Sometimes it's about money. So sometimes if something's taking a lot of my time and my emotional bandwidth, but it's not contributing to my income, I drop it. I've had a few hobbies that I've had to drop, or I should say, I had a freelance job, but the hours I was putting in relative to the money I was making, I didn't need the money. Like, I didn't need the money to support me, so I dropped it, and it gave me a lot more time to do other things. Then, of course, most of the things I do, I don't get paid for. So then it's just kind of juggling. Sometimes it's just pure time management. So with YouTube, I batch film. That helps me a lot. With writing, I write at night. I kind of fit the writing around the day job and all of that jazz. With AMM, I ask for help. Asking for help is actually a huge part of time management. If you are working on something and you're overwhelmed and it's too much, you can ask for help. And then, yeah, it's not easy. It's a juggle. I'm also single, and I do not have a family. I just have cats to take care of, which does help. And often with time management, I do spend less time with my friends that I'd like, and that's not a good thing. That's some of the failure you guys don't see. Let's see. If I could spend a day inside another published author's head and subsequently in their internal fictional world, whose head would you visit? Jasper Fforde. He's my favorite author. I adore the Thursday Next series. I would love to write a book like Jasper Fforde, so 100% Jasper Fforde. You should read his books if you haven't. The first one is called The Eyre Affair. And Jane Eyre is kidnapped from the original manuscript of Jane Eyre, and it changes every copy of Jane Eyre worldwide, and Thursday Next has to save her. Can you tell why I like this? Let's see. Do I have trouble adding diversity to my writing? Okay, this is going to be such a flip answer. Yes and no. I mean, no, yes. Brightly Burning, I just wrote a world that reflected the world that I live in. I live in an insanely diverse world. I grew up in Washington, D.C., so I had kids from like dozens of nations attending my school. I went to school with refugees. Like, that's just normal. Then I moved to Atlanta, which is also very diverse. Boston, least diverse place I've ever lived, actually, because my elite university was super white. And also not class diverse. That was the first time I was among really rich people. That was a wake-up call, but it prepared me for publishing. Most people in publishing are upper middle class. And then I live in Los Angeles and I work in international television. So I just populated my world with the people who are in my life. So the reason a major character in Brightly Burning is Mandarin is because my colleague at work is from Taiwan. That's why she's Mandarin. I have... same thing, I have South Asian characters because, like, that's reflective of my friends. I put a Filipino character in there because I work with a major Filipino network. Japanese character, same thing. It just kind of came organically. Although I will say, Brightly Burning is the most heteronormative thing I've ever written in my entire life, and so the new book is a lot more queer. But at the same time, yes and no. So yes and no. It's hard because I never want to take space away from another person. I never want to tell a story that isn't mine to tell. And I also don't want... I just want to be respectful with anything that I write. So it is hard in the sense that I know that you have to make choices and you're second guessing your choices. I think that if you're just kind of thoughtful and empathetic and don't just never try to take anything away from anyone else. It's hard. So that's kind of how I handle diversity in a sense, meaning I do what's organic, but I'm always thoughtful about my choices. Like, if I'm making an organic choice, but that organic choice fulfills a stereotype, don't make that choice, you know? It's a nuanced issue. And that's also the reason I'll tell you why I haven't really done videos on writing diversity on my channel, is that I honestly don't think this white lady is the person that you should listen to on this topic. I think that you should be seeking out and listening to marginalized voices in the community, and kind of go from there. Let's see. Oh, bookstores. Do I prefer used bookstores or bright, alluring awesomeness of new bookstores? I love new bookstores. Is that terrible? I just adore shopping the shelves, especially the YA section at new bookstores. And it doesn't mean it's just there aren't that many in Los Angeles. I don't think. I don't really. So new bookstores for me. I'm so sorry. When I was in Boston, though, I went to the used bookstore was my preference because Brookline Booksmith was my indie in Boston. Upstairs is all new and downstairs is all used. And I exclusively shopped in the used section of Brookline Booksmith. So it's just kind of location as well. My Chinese zodiac sign. Oh my gosh, I always forget this. I'm a pig or a rat. I can't remember. I'm a pig or a rat. I'm one of those. I want to say I'm a rat. Maybe it was 1983. Movie recommendations for writers. Oh gosh, any movie can be good for writers. I think anything that has good structure, good characterization, good arcs, anything that makes you feel something can be good for writers. One of my favorite movies is The Joy Luck Club, and I highly recommend that you watch it. First of all, it's just a good adaptation of a great book. But I just love this. I love the character arcs, and I love the way it made me feel things. That's when I watch to be inspired. I watch Ever After a lot to be inspired when I want to write something really angsty and romantic. I watch Contact all the time just because I love that movie, but same thing, arcs. All the movies I watch to be inspired as a writer have amazing character arcs. All right. Well, I don't keep where I live a secret. I live in Los Angeles. Hello. I live in Hollywood. If you watch my Instagram stories, sometimes I share all the weird things happening on Hollywood Boulevard. I walk on Hollywood Boulevard every single day. Any advice on making writer friends? It's hard. It's a mix of bravery and being careful. I know that's scary. So I won't lie. I've just rolled into people's DMs to become their friend, and that doesn't always work for everyone. You have to kind of be careful and think about levels. So like when I was rolling into people's DMs, it wasn't like a New York Times bestseller because you can't really roll into their DMs. I wasn't going, hey, who would I want to be friends with? I mean, so many people. I wasn't rolling into Kirsten White's DMs like, hey, let's be friends. But like peers, I would, if we were in pitch contests together or whatnot, I might be like, hey, your story sounds really cool. Do you want to exchange pages? I would do that on Reddit as well. And you just kind of look for, my starting point was, of course, always similar stories, because very often if someone is writing something similar to what you like to write and what you like to read, you will hopefully probably get along. And yeah, it would start as kind of like either let's exchange pages, or if something was going on in the community and like I could tell we had a point of commonality, it might be like, hey, let's talk about this thing. So for me, a lot of it was either on Reddit. If I were doing it in this community, it could be responding to comments on YouTube, could be responding to tweets on Twitter DMs. It's not easy. And then events. Honestly, I've also been able to make friends by going to IRL book events. Those do actually help. And in those cases, it's just kind of the bravery of talking to people in line. If you're in line for the same thing and you're at a bookish event, you can probably talk to that person. It's not easy, but that is kind of how I recommend it. Oh, and then you can also do things like AMM, pitch wars, what have you. You can find friends that way. And again, it's initiating a conversation based on a shared interest or shared place that you are. Let's see. Oh, Harry Potter. All the way, Team Harry Potter. Lord of the Rings is fine, but I mean, I literally write books because of Harry Potter, because I got into Harry Potter fandom and fan fiction. It's the reason I gained confidence to write fiction. So I also ran more than one Harry Potter convention, so Harry Potter. Is Persuasion my favorite Austen book? Yes, it is. But it's a favorite I came to as an adult. Prior to that, of course, my favorite was Pride and Prejudice, because that's everyone's favorite. But then I just kind of came to love Persuasion. I read it in my mid-20s, and I just related to it so hard. And I've never had my heart broken or broken someone else's heart and had him come back into my life. I really related to a lot of the feelings. So, is it expensive, or how expensive is it to attend book events? That's a really good question. It really varies. The biggest cost is always going to be travel. So look for events that are actually local to you whenever possible, which isn't always possible depending on where you live. But if there is a book event local to you, your costs are going to be lower if you don't have to travel very far. On the lowest end, so BookNet Fest this past year was $25, the registration. So you just had to pay for your travel to Orlando and your hotel. I found it to be pretty affordable overall. But then if you're going to, say, BEA or really BookCon, way more expensive. It's going to be more expensive to fly to New York, stay in New York. And I think that BookCon, it's at least a couple $100s. In general, most writing conferences are very expensive. I have never paid for a writing conference because I don't have a lot of money. And that's actually one of the reasons I started my channel. I really hate the idea that certain quality information about publishing and writing is behind a paywall. I don't like that. I don't like that you have to pay $600 to attend an SCBWI conference or ALA or what have you. ALA, of course, is a librarian event. You don't really need to attend that as a writer. RWA, what have you. And those events are great, and they're great for the people who go. And if you have the money and you want to spend it, go. But I don't like the idea of that kind of stuff being behind a paywall. I've never paid for one. And then you can also meet writers at more like fanish events. So Leviosa is actually a good example. That's the Harry Potter convention I did in 2016 that had a YA literature and writing track. That registration starts at $175. It's for 4 full days of programming and then travel and hotel. There's another one happening this summer. I'm not organizing it, but my friends are doing it with my blessing. And I will be attending in writing programming. I'm thinking of doing an AuthorTube panel. So that's definitely something I would recommend if you have the budget to travel to Los Angeles and pay that registration. I'd say it's not a cheap registration. I do think it's worth it. Comes with some food. But if that's something that is feasible for you, that could be a good one. People will do VidCon, like from a YouTube perspective, though. VidCon hasn't had BookTube content. And they didn't have any last year. So I wouldn't consider VidCon a good place currently for the AuthorTube community. But I think it'd be great if we started going to BookNet Fest. I really enjoyed myself. It was started by booktubers, but there are AuthorTubers who go. I was there, and that's why I really connected with Ginger Reads Laney. That was a very good one. Favorite Austen novels, Mansfield Park. I didn't get into that one. It was okay. I love the movie, though, but the movie is really not like the book. Yay, you subbed to AMM. Woohoo! Is the YA market oversaturated? Yes, it is. Hi, would you like me to kill your dreams? I'm kidding. YA has always been hard, but it is oversaturated right now. It won't stay that way forever. And it's just that YA got so big, and for such a long time, it was basically a sure thing for publishers. The books sell. The books sell. YA readers are pretty voracious. But there's so much of it now. And especially we have like established famous authors, of course, the big bestsellers. People will always buy their books, but it's gotten harder and harder to break out debuts, to break out new voices. So it is saturated. There's more agents than ever trying to sell it, but the number of publishers, reputable, good publishers, hasn't really changed. The publishing slots, they used to pay a lot of money for a lot of books. Now they only pay a lot of money for 1 or 2 titles, and then they pay not enough money for all the rest. And then there's like things with marketing. So YA is definitely saturated, but doesn't mean, I mean, you should always keep trying, but prepare yourself for a long haul. I'm glad I got in. I got in when it was saturated, but it was possible. Middle grade's really opening up, though, if you have any interest in middle grade. Middle grade's definitely opening up currently. Partly, I think, because the influx of adults into YA has really pushed the entire category darker and older. It skews that way. We really don't have light, young YA. Like Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants could never be published now as a YA novel. It just wouldn't happen. It would be upper middle grade. And so we're seeing a lot of those like longer, sweet, like light and fun books about like 14 and 15-year-olds are moving to middle grade. And so there is kind of a space opening up in middle grade, more books for middle grade. Has anything from NaNoWriMo ever been published? Yeah, a lot of things from NaNoWriMo have been published. I mean, my book was published. The Night Circus was a Nano book, and so were all of Marissa Meyer's Cinder series books. In fact, that workhorse apparently wrote the first 3 in one single NaNoWriMo. She wrote 150,000 words or more than that in one nano, which is bonkers. I'm sure there's more, but those three I know for a fact, nano novels. Let's see. What word count would you decide to make a standalone at least 2 books? Depends on your genre. And you'd have to go over 120K, but then you'd also have to ask yourself, is there really enough for 2 separate story arcs? You have to really look at your structure, because there's nothing I hate more than a single story split over 2 books where there's no individual plot or character arc. There's a very popular YA series where I'm still mad I had to buy the second book because the first book basically didn't tell a complete story. Forever mad. I think I don't like it. So I advise you not to do it when possible. It's usually better just to really be disciplined with yourself and cut words from that single standalone story. Anne and the French Kiss. That's a really good one. That was a nano book. Thank you for sharing that, Kristen. And I'm so glad you're repping Livius in the comments. It was great. Yeah, so the next one's in Los Angeles. It's the last weekend of June, and tickets are now available. Again, I'm not running it, but my friends are, so I endorse it. If the main character of my books had a theme song, what song would it be? Well, I'll tell you the songs that I listened to while I was writing. For Brightly Burning, for Stella, it's St. Claude by Christine and the Queens. And that's really the theme song for the romance. And for my new one, The Stars We Steal, It Must Have Been Love by Roxette, which is very depressing, but I love that song, and I listened to it on repeat when I was writing the book. And it's Swedish, which has significance. I love Europop. I love how you guys are dropping all these nano books in the comments. Awesome. Or the chat, live chat. Is it harder to break into middle grade? Right now it's not hard. That's the thing. Publishers are buying up a lot of middle grade. It's not as hard as it used to be. Monetary potential, there are such different markets. You're usually going to get paid less upfront for your middle grade, but if you're successful, it can have a longer tail. That's probably the best way to see it, because middle grade really depends on school and library markets, school visits, appealing to parents, and it's kind of about winning over those categories. You're not direct marketing to kids. A story that is 12,688 words is a short story. To be a novella, you need to get into like the at least 20K range. How do you query a book under pen name? Easy. I also have a video on this. You query and you sign it Alexa Donne, parentheses, or sorry, Alexa real name, parentheses, writing as Alexa Donne. Easy. That's what I did.
Sorry, I'm not sure.
My Echo just talked. Ugh, did you hear that? It does that all the time. Let's see. How many hours do I spend writing a day? Not that many. Average an hour, maybe 2. I don't do epic long writing sessions. I write a little bit at a time. I'm actually going to be posting a video soon on my writing process because I realized I hadn't actually posted one. And I'm going to talk more about my word counts and how shockingly low they are. But the point is, slow and steady wins the race. I'm the tortoise, not the hare. So, what genre are you daring to write in that you haven't yet? What genre have you not yet written that you never want to? I'm not going to say never to anything. Yeah. I wrote YA fantasy. I want to write YA fantasy so badly. So that's why I'm going to nano my YA fantasy, because I love YA fantasy. I read so much of it. Let's see. Do most agents accept Word documents if they're written in LibreOffice? Most agents are going to prefer a Word document, generally speaking. Yeah, though you can kind of get away at the querying stage with other formats, but once you get a book deal, you have to pay for Microsoft Word. You cannot do copy editing unless you have Microsoft Word, so that's an expense you definitely have to incur if you're traditionally publishing. But that's down the line. All right. Kirsten White wrote Elizabeth Frankenstein in 6 days. Kill me. I did know that. And she's so efficient. So I met her at Texas Teen and I adore her. She's so nice. She's so nice. I'm like, you're so cool. I asked her for like writing tips, and she's just like, I just write so fast. I was like, oh, I can't do that. You know, I've covered all the topics I was going to cover, and you guys have asked me really good questions. But I think we should wrap it up because we're pushing an hour and a half. So last call for questions. And briefly, while you do that, I just thought I would share recent reads because I've actually been reading. That's like the good thing about finally turning in my book. I get to read again. Alexa, do I have an Alexa? Yeah, it went off a few minutes ago. I have an Echo. It's funny.
I don't know that one.
She's talking again. She does that. Is there another classic that I want to reinterpret? Not yet. I don't have one. Well, I kind of do, but it's not a classic novel. There's a classic movie I want to rewrite, but I don't know if I'm going to get to do it anytime soon. So I don't want to tell you and get your hopes up. So recent reads. So I don't have the physical book because I read the ebook, but this is The Dazzling Heights, which is the sequel to The Thousandth Floor. I read The Thousandth Floor on my way back from Texas Teen on my Kindle. It was so good. I just want to wreck it to people. I flew through it. I read it in like a day. It's just like, it's futuristic Gossip Girl, basically, which is so my wheelhouse. Definitely recommend it. It's like, when I say like trashy, I mean trashy in a good way. It's trashy in the way that I think my books are trashy. It's just all about like teens and their feelings and like class division. So I really, really enjoyed The Thousandth Floor. I bought the entire series. I have to go back and get the first one in hardcover since I read it on ebook, but I love how pretty the covers are. Highly recommend that. And then I think I'm finally allowed to talk about The Wicked King. So I actually read this a really long time ago, and I thought about making a video on it, but I was like, you can't make a video on a book that doesn't come out for almost a year. But live chat is a perfect opportunity. I just want to tell you how much I love this book, how everyone has to buy this book when it comes out. Also, I just want to like share how beautiful this is, that Holly Black signed it for me. It was so good. And the reason I want to talk about this, especially any of you who are writing series, it can be so hard to pull off a series. And one of the hardest things about pulling off a series is that the second book is often a bridge book when something is a trilogy. The second book feels inert. It feels like the book the writer had to write in order to get to the. A lot of you have felt this with the trilogies that you've read. And I think it's the reason YA had trilogy fatigue and stopped buying so many of them, because the readers, the fall off, like people would buy book one, then they would buy book two, fewer people would buy book two, and then the fall off would be insane between book two and book three. That's actually pretty common sales wise. And I think one of the reasons is that so many book twos in YA trilogies honestly weren't very good. This book, it's possibly the best book two in a trilogy I've ever read. Definitely that I've read in a really, really long time. And I think that ultimately this trilogy is going to be a perfect trilogy. I have complete faith in Holly Black that the third book is going to deliver. And so yeah, everyone needs to pick this up. Essentially, it follows the advice perfectly. This is a standalone story. This is a complete plot arc. It is a complete character arc, but it carries over so perfectly from the first book. Like, it organically makes so much sense. And everything is set up for book three. And I see what book three is going to do. And I'm so excited for it. It's a perfect series. And also, just it surprised me. There were twists in this book I wasn't anticipating. It made me scream. I didn't cry. This one wasn't a cry book for me, but so much screaming. Like, there's something that happened. Because I got the first time this arc dropped, I got this arc. So literally no one had read it. And I was dying and just desperate to talk to someone, and I couldn't, because I couldn't believe the twist. And now more people have read it. So yeah, like, pre-order this now. If you haven't read The Cruel Prince, read The Cruel Prince. I love this series so much. Holly Black is a master. And actually, the question before about getting in an author's head, I said Jasper Fforde. I would also totally love to get in Holly Black's head. I just want to like learn from her by osmosis. How to write a rivalry between two female characters without falling into sexist tropes. have them understand each other, have it not be about a boy. If it is about a boy, make both of the characters vulnerable and interesting. I think normally where it falls into tropes is that you have like the virginal good girl and it's the Madonna whore complex, and the other one's always like, she's always so pretty and thin and she's easy. I hate that. Just avoid tropes. I mean, girls get into conflicts all the time. Women get into conflicts all the time. The key is just not kind of defaulting to misogynist stereotypes. And also, you're probably not going to nail it on your first draft. You're going to have to fix it in revision. I have female rivalries in both of my books, and I can't even say that I nailed it. Like, when you read the final product, it still might not work. Because female rivalries were baked into both of the things I was retelling, especially Jane Eyre. I don't know. I tried to see both sides. I tried to never have them be catty about appearance, because I don't like that at all. And honestly, it wasn't easy, and I can't guarantee that I did it right. But that's my advice. That's what I do. Oh, so I actually understand why people don't like The Cruel Prince. Obviously, I liked it. But The Cruel Prince has very interesting narrative structure. I'm sure if you broke it down on a beat sheet, it would still fit a beat sheet. But Holly Black is a pantser, and I can kind of tell. And she's the kind of books I like, meaning they're very character and world driven. They have plots. They're still plot driven, but they're more character and world driven than they are plot driven. And so I didn't know what The Cruel Prince was. I didn't know what the book was. I didn't know what the trajectory of the plot and the characters were till at least the midpoint. And that thing, I don't think this is a spoiler, meaning the series has spies in it. That's really what the plot is. It's like fae espionage, kind of. It's court intrigue. And that wasn't obvious when you started the book, because it starts more like a boarding school book. You know what I mean? And it transitions out of that and it really becomes a different kind of book. And it became the kind of book I like. I like both kinds of books, but I can 100% see where readers wouldn't like it, because you were promised one book and it is a different book, becomes a different book. That just worked for me. If you like the court politics and the intrigue, that is what the second book is. I like that. So a lot of it, actually. Also, there's a really good sex scene. So good. So good. I read it like 4 times. Let's see. Yeah, comparisons, you have to be careful. I haven't read ACOTAR, so I've just read The Cruel Prince. I wasn't comparing it. I know I need to read ACOTAR, but I haven't. So I just went in pretty pure to The Cruel Prince. I definitely like the way the Holly Black writes fae. So, favorite series. I mean, it's adult. It's Jasper Fforde, like forever and always. I love him. I'm sure you didn't make a fool of yourself at Book Mad Fest. In fact, I know you didn't. You're fine. All authors are awkward, by the way. All writers are awkward. In fact, when you meet an author who's really confident and suave and extroverted, they're weird. They're the weird one, not the socially awkward, anxious ones. We're normal. Oh, I know I have to read ACOTAR. There's so many books to read. My TBR is obscene. It's actually embarrassing how behind I am on reading. That's actually why it's amazing I read The Cruel Prince, because I featured that in a TBR video and I actually read it. Unlike most of the books in my TBR videos. I'm such a bad booktuber. Did I design my signature? I did. I practiced it. That's not how I actually sign my name, because Donne is not my real name. I did design it and practice it. Okay, I think we should wrap it up. I know I haven't caught every question, but a few of you are asking about pantsing, and if you go back to the beginning and watch, I talk a lot about tips for pantsing, specifically pantsing nano. And I can do a whole video on pantsing tips. Why not? Because I love pantsing. And then any questions I didn't get to, any like nitty-gritty stuff, just when this video is done, drop them down below in the comments, because the chat box will close and I can look at them in the comments. That probably makes more sense for us answering really specific things. Hopefully I will have time. I don't always have time to answer questions. And also, pro tip, don't email me questions. I actually should probably like turn off my email, because I don't have time to answer specific questions for people. There's just way too much going on in my life. Like if I either cover it in a video or answer your comment if I have time. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I can't believe so many of you were here. I want to do this again, but in the meantime, look for the discussion show that I'm launching with Catty-tastic and Ginger Reads Laney. The first episode is going to go up, I think we're doing November 4th, which is a Sunday. We're going to be every other week. We're going to try to do live chat discussions of issues that are relevant to AuthorTube and the BookTube community, because we kind of straddle both communities. Our first one's just all about NaNoWriMo, because I'm NaNoWriMoing, I think Laney's NaNoWriMoing, and Kat is NaNoRevMoing. She is revising during Nano. So we're really excited for it. This was really my test of how the heck do you do a live chat. So thank you for bearing with me. Turns out it's not that bad. Though I hope the whole lag thing worked. I'll watch this back and hopefully my mouth matches the video. And no, seriously, I was worried you guys wouldn't ask me questions, which is why I prepared things to talk about. And you guys were amazing. You asked more questions than I thought you would. They were really good questions. We had a good chat. So we will do this again. So thank you guys. Yes, bookmarking November 4th. The first discussion is going to be hosted on Kat's channel. She's Catty-tastic on YouTube. The second one's going to be on my channel. And the third one is going to be on Laney's channel. That's as far into the schedule as we've gotten. But yeah, we have a lot of plans, and we were inspired by Bookmarked, which is a BookTube chat show. You can watch that. I think they broadcast on Thursdays, but check them out. Those are hosted between Haley in Bookland, Zoe Loves Books, and A Clockwork Reader. So that's one I recommend as well. So thanks, guys. If you got here late, you can watch the replay. I cannot believe I just talked for an hour and a half. I'm so sorry. So happy Sunday, everyone. It's Tuesday. Bookmarked is Tuesday. Bye.